Watching viewers concluding Glinda as a true villain of Wicked hurt my soul. It was definitely a sign that they'd be guaranteed to hate her even more after Part 2's release. And as sadly true as that is, it's not surprising. A simple glimpse into the social climate we're in, where goodness is measured by the social justice causes one supports, what class they fall into in the oppressed versus oppressor Olympics, and how quickly they are to throw away their entire lives to fight a system of oppression, the portrayal of Glinda as real evil by the public is something I kind of saw coming. Any attempt to humanize her character is mostly met with contempt and accusations of being a reflection of how good people are in their personal lives. Oh, you just like Glinda because she's white and blonde. Oh, you only like Glinda because it's Ariana Grande. One creator on TikTok went as far as to label those who like or defend the character as, quote, red flags in real life.
You are doomed to suffer in this life if you cannot understand that the lesson in that show is that sometimes your white friend literally has to watch you die before they can do the right thing.
I'm not sure if telling people that they like a fictional character because they are awful in real life will get them to understand your perspective, but hey, to each their own. Many after watching this movie have resonated with Glinda. From her need and struggle to be seen, her loneliness despite being surrounded by admirers, being forced to live a life she didn't ask for, the feeling of being used for others' gains, never having people truly believe in her, and being the girl who, in the words of Caroline Forbes, tries so hard but is never the one. Plenty of people can relate to these issues on a deep and personal level, regardless of the color of their skin or the socioeconomic class they were born into. This is what made me fall in love with the musical all those years ago. Elphaba and Glinda were universal characters anyone could relate to, see themselves in, sympathize with, and especially learn from. But as I mentioned earlier, we are living in a different political climate right now. One where plenty are deluding themselves through their mischaracterization of Glinda that they are elphaba, or rather that they would be elphaba if similar circumstances befell them, that they could stand up to any oppressive and manipulative systems just as easily as she did. They completely sideline Glinda's transformation, which in my humble opinion is one of the more realistic portrayals of human change and redemption in fiction. Most movies tend to give examples of bad or morally gray characters choosing good in an instant after witnessing one injustice that they cannot defend. But I'd argue that reality is quite different from that. That most people in general feel compelled to do better when they themselves are personally affected. Not discounting the possibility of one catastrophe forcing change, because that can and does happen. But for most, compulsion grows stronger with time through several instances that bring a turnaround of a character. Glinda's journey to becoming good is understandable, realistic, and above all, human. The movie, songs, and Broadway musicals do a great job of offering us clues into the mind of Glinda, how she perceives herself, the world around her, and her place in that world, which affects the decisions she makes, good or bad, throughout the story. Majority of her criticism began in the first movie, with Glinda choosing to stay behind in Emerald City after discovering the wizard to be a fraud. Now, a lot of this is credited to Glinda being comfortable in her privilege, her status, and refusing to do the right thing like Elfie is choosing. The inability to understand the layers of why she made that choice is what makes me wonder if all those video essays about media literacy being dead are right. I do not cast the interpretation that Glinda would rather choose her comfortable life over the uncertainty of what comes with taking a stand with elphaba aside. On the contrary, I agree with it. However, I do believe that there's an aspect worth considering. Glinda is not just worried about losing her place in Oz. She truly believes that Elfie's plan will not work because it is too emotional and not thought through. At the beginning of Defying Gravity, she's literally criticizing her for overreacting and ruining her cause forever.
Why can you stay calm for once? Instead of flying off the handle, I hope you're happy how you hurt your cause forever. I hope you think you're clever.
In the middle of the song, she sings, "Can I make you understand? You're having delusions of grandeur." This is a genuine concern, because Elphaba is operating on all magic and little power, which emboldens her to challenge the wizard. She told the wizard to his face that he had no real power, a sentiment she again repeats with Glinda later on in the second movie.
Animals in cages and an enemy, you have no real power.
You can wave that wand all you want, but you have no real power.
What she fails to consider is what Glinda sees, which is that true power is in the hands of those who can influence, and to fight against that with just raw magic is futile. Glinda comes from Upland, a place of wealth, power, and prestige. It makes sense that in this environment she has come to understand influence and how it is wielded to one's advantage. Her knowledge of things like keeping up appearances, the way one carries themselves, the way that they're viewed in the public, in other words, things Elfie cares very little about, shows how different their upbringings were. Popular is not just a cute song to sing along to, it is a deeper look into Glinda's view of the world, her understanding of what makes people well-liked, and the importance of how one is viewed over their aptitude. Many watching the film hyperfocus on her flawed intentions in trying to turn Elfie into her little project, which, by the way, anyone can acknowledge to that. But at the same time, I think we should recognize the depth of her character in that song and how she's letting us into her perception of the world. Her verse about celebrated heads of state is not just a chilling foreshadowing into the wizard being a fraud. It's a sign of what Glinda has had to witness growing up. People in posh society pretending to be better than they actually are to gain attention and respect is probably something someone of her status is used to witnessing. I strongly believe that this is why the wizard's betrayal didn't cut Glinda as deeply as it did Elphie. Elphaba grew up believing in the wizard's goodness and power. She heard this propaganda all her life and has never once questioned it. The reality of him not being who he's claimed to be all this time, on top of the fact that he is the one abusing the animals, which she cares about very deeply, is too much for her to bear, causing her very emotional outburst, which Glinda criticizes later on. For Glinda, this is the world she grew up in. An excellent communicator turning out to be a fraud with no real knowledge isn't culture shock. She tells Elphie in the popular song, "Don't make me laugh," after asking her about heads of states having brains, which in my opinion indicates that in Glinda's mind, the idea of anyone with influence actually having something of substance is laughable to her. The wizard is simply doing what probably many in her society have done, and to her, that is real power. I understand that it is easy to brush Glinda off as a complacent, privileged white girl, but I believe that that is ignoring some layers that matter in her story. I've even come to notice that even when some of these nuances are pointed out, many sideline them because they show actual flaws in Elphaba's choices. To making her friend the target of attacks. She asks her to take off with her, without a plan, without a destination, without magic. Let's not forget she is yet to muster her own, to go out somewhere far away from her life, to be a fugitive for a cause that she doesn't even care about. It exposes that Elphie was thinking more about herself than she was about her friend, let alone the actual cause. I'm a firm believer that defying gravity is not Elphaba's character arc as some believe, but rather no good deed, where she accepts the reality that all of her own good deeds have done little to help her cause, but in fact have led to the demise of those she cares about. But that's a video for another day, and that is if this one does well. Glinda refusing to get on the broom is more than her not wanting to walk away from comfort, which, believe me, is definitely true and selfish, but also in addition, an awareness that Elphaba is fighting a battle she cannot win against an opponent she does not understand. Elphie is not light. She cannot control her powers, she's a fugitive, and above all, she has no influence in Oz. Glinda going with her, while noble, does nothing but make her an enemy and a fugitive that cannot help Elphie because she has no magic. I mean, if we're really going to be realistic and go there, she would have been nothing but a liability. That's what makes the scene so heartbreaking. It's the reality weighing on both of these women, how different they are and how it's affecting their choices, and trying to extend compassion and understanding to one another at the same time. Glinda wants to be with her friend forever, but the cost means giving up the life that this system has given to her and jumping into uncertainty, something she's never had to deal with before. Elphie is used to uncertainty, she's used to not being liked, she's used to the world being against her entirely. Glinda is not. And making that decision is not going to be easy for her. This is a kind of inner conflict that makes characters complex. The ignorance of these layers that make up Glinda's story may not just be a peek into the way socio-political issues are viewed in our generation, but also a sign that complex characters are something a lot of people aren't ready for right now. The characteristics that make up a complex character are all in her story, her journey into becoming truly good, which started with privilege and complacency, but was later sharpened into greatness through hardship, pain, loss, and responsibility. There are at this point probably thousands of articles on what makes a complex character and how to write one that's compelling for audiences. But in the ones that I've read, they all seem to agree on 5 major aspects: internal conflict, depth and layers, realism, contradiction, and development. All parts that I believe are truly found in Glinda's story. And I believe analyzing them can help others see her in a different light. I already talked about the internal conflict that Glinda faces in the defying gravity scene. But throughout the first movie, we see glimpses of internal conflict as well. The train station is actually one of my favorites. It's often overlooked, with the focus being on Glinda's very shallow attempt to express her outrage for what happened to Dr. Dillamond, even though we know she does not care about him. But her conversation with Elphaba after that, on still wanting Fiyero, even though he's no longer perfect, is one that comes to mind when I think of internal conflict. Glinda knows that appearances are everything, and her dating a prince who wants the same things as her, shallow and as vapid as they may be, is good for her image and popularity. But when Fiyero starts to change, no longer aligned with her personal motivations, she still cares about him. Popularity be damned. The ballroom scene is another, where we see Glinda do something that might deplete her popularity, showing genuine compassion for Elphaba, the outcast. Speaking of the Ozdas duet, it also reveals another characteristic: realism. The The number of videos talking about how Glinda is, quote, for the girls who blank is being written off as a sign that fans do not want to acknowledge the character's flaws, or that they are somehow analyzing her incorrectly because it's Ariana Grande and they like Ariana Grande. And while I can understand where some of that is coming from, perhaps critics are overlooking the simple fact that people feel that way because they can relate to some of what Glinda is going through. We all at some point know what it's like to have someone tell you that you are incapable. Madame Morrible at the duet is cruel to Glinda, telling her that she not only has no faith in her, but that she doubts that she can prove to have what it takes.
Actually, I have no faith in you. My personal opinion, dear, is that you do not have what it takes. I hope you prove me wrong. I doubt you will.
The pain on Glinda's face can be felt through the screen. Everyone who's been looked down on could understand it. Fiyera's betrayal in leaving her at the altar for her best friend, and no, I don't want to hear any excuses about his spineless behavior, acting as if Glinda held him at gunpoint to marry her. But my point is, being romantically betrayed or being the girl that is never picked, no matter how hard one tries, is something that is very real. The fear of standing up for what is right is something relatable too. Try as they may to judge the woman, plenty in her shoes would have shown the exact same complacency and cowardice she showed in defying gravity. Being put in a position to comfort everyone else while suffering from the inside, forced to hide one's pain, is also a show of realism in her journey. Glinda's transformation into a political tool for the wizard, while processing the pain of her struggles alone, is something many have witnessed in their own lives. And I would know. I am the eldest daughter of an African family. I can definitely relate. When fans say, I am Glinda, or Glinda is me, it is a reflection of her realism, a sign that her character has been written so well that others can see themselves in her, despite the fact that they are not exactly like her. This does not automatically mean that they are writing off her wrongs as justifiable, even though there are some people who do try to justify her actions, but that is not always the case. Like any complex character, Glinda also has contradictions. She is a queen bee of shiz with a mean girl side. We see her gift Elfie the hat that her grandmother gave her with the intention to humiliate her, but feeling awful and terrible for that choice after she learns that Elphaba took it as an olive branch to do something nice for her. Glinda also seems to be vain, attention-seeking, and self-centered. She immediately offers to help Elphaba with her green skin to look good in the presence of other Shias students. She relishes in their praise of her even when it comes at the expense of ostracizing Elphaba. She changes her name for Fiyera's attention, pretending that it's about the animals, and also tries to make Elphaba her personal popularity project. But we also witness her being genuinely kind. She compliments Elfie's beauty in the mirror while singing Popular. She reassures her that she's not to blame for her mother's death. She accepts Elfie's choice to leave even when she does not support the method, wishing her genuine happiness. Glinda also seems ditzy and oblivious, coming off as emotionally unintelligent. But in the ballroom scene, she can tell that Elphaba cares what others think of her. She's also aware that Elphaba is a bit too ambitious for her own good when she makes an enemy of the wizard. She also knows that Fiyera wouldn't harm her when he holds her at gunpoint to save Elphaba's life. That scene was also a sign of her growth, another necessary characteristic of complex characters. When she shows Fiyera understanding for literally holding her at gunpoint after abandoning her at the altar and lying about loving her for half a decade, it is a sign that she has reached her turning point. She is hurt by Fiyera and Elphaba's betrayal. Disappointed, really. But she understands that Fiyera did what he did to save Elfie's life. The pain of losing the man she loves to her best friend, the weight of responsibility she feels due to the position she holds in Oz, and the death of Nessa are all events most notable as turnarounds for Glinda. But what I really appreciate more than anything is that her growth is gradual and not spontaneous. Despite the ballroom scene being a genuine moment of selflessness, her vanity is still very much apparent afterwards. Even in the second film, we see Fiyera confront her about her inability to resist the glory and the praise she gains from a system she knows was built by frauds. Her genuine acts of goodness in the first movie do not erase that part of her away. That wouldn't make sense. It's the painful experiences, one after another, that teach her responsibility, selflessness, understanding, and wisdom, gradually pulling her to her ultimate salvation. If Glinda was ever going to be the true hero that would bring the necessary change to Oz, she had to grow up, and Wicked for Good did that for her. It gave her what I believe is a true hero's journey, where the character learns to love and fight for something beyond themselves. I hate to say this out loud because I know it might get me into trouble, but I do not believe that Elphaba was ever supposed to be the hero of Oz, at least not in the way some people had hoped, where justice would be truly served by her defeating the wizard and taking charge of Oz. If anything, Wicked shows time again that Elphaba is simply not ready for that responsibility. Throughout both movies, we see her being driven by her emotions, being impulsive, and all of her good deeds being thrown back in her face. No matter how genuine some of her intentions were, things always ended up going wrong or not the way she believed they would. Reality is that good intentions don't solve problems, well-calculated plans do. One must have a proper understanding of what the issue is in the first place and not be blinded by their anger, no matter how righteous it may be, if they have any hope of enacting real lasting change. From defying gravity, Glinda's warning to Elphaba is not just prophetic. It is a sign that she understands practicality, showing her as the more rational one, at least in that moment. Glinda not only had a better understanding of how the system works, she had something Elfie didn't: the people's trust. The same trust she had in the wizard before his true colors were revealed is what her people have in Glinda. And that trust is a necessary component for any hero. For half a decade, the people have been convinced that she, Elphaba, is evil and that Glinda is good. And for much longer than that, they've believed that the wizard was perfect. To be deconditioned from that mentality is going to take time. That task can be properly completed by someone who not only has an understanding of how the system works, but someone the audience believe is on their side. Elphaba does learn that at the end of the second movie, and that's why she asks Glinda not to clear her name. I've seen some critics claim that it is promoting the idea that the masses cannot handle the truth, and that those in power need to lie to them in order for them to live their everyday lives. But I disagree. This was just Elphaba recognizing the need for Glinda specifically to be the hero of Oz, to be the one who enacts change. Everyday More Wicked's lyrics are literally a prophecy to her future heroism. Quote, "We believe in Glinda. With her magic she will prevail. She will make it end the way it should, when at last wicked is defeated by the good. She was always meant to be the frontline hero. But she needed Elphaba to get there, to show her what true goodness really means. This had to be done by taking what I believe to be a real hero's journey, one that's marked by growth, responsibility, pain, loss, and sacrifice. For 5 years, Glinda went from being a spoiled, insufferable brat with little sense of responsibility to a woman forged by loss and sacrifice, to become good enough to lead the way for those who need it. Glinda's story starts with her living what is her ordinary life. Her life is disrupted by Elphaba coming into it. Elphaba's desire to meet the wizard creates even more chaos when he's proven to be a fraud. When Elphaba asks her to come with to respond to the call of social responsibility, she cowers, lacking courage. Madame Morrible and the wizard then form her into a political weapon, giving her the tools she needs to understand what it takes to be an influential figure in Oz. That responsibility, however, breaks her, forcing her to come to terms with her complacency, to face her greatest fears, which includes losing the ones she loves, and to take a long, hard look in the mirror and accept that the persona the public loves so much is not who she really is. The experiences of losing Fiyero to Elphaba, looking at Bok as the Tin Man and unable to recognize the friend she once made at Shiz, Nessa actually dying, and believing that she had lost Elphaba and Fiyero for good are what makes her what she needs to be to lead her people. As much as I love heroes who start their journeys off with good intentions and those who are pure in heart, I feel personally more drawn to those that start selfish, driven by their vapid desires for greatness, and then growing into something more. Maybe it's the Christian in me that grew up reading Bible stories of messed up people being changed by God and becoming heroes of faith, but that's what drew me to Glinda. Because she doesn't start off as a decent human being, but she does become worthy of leadership in time. She's rightfully tested and tried and manages to overcome despite the damages that she and her friends suffered. I know that most come to the conclusion that her story is a tragedy, a cautionary tale against complacency and the harm that those in privileged positions can cause if they do not use it for good. That is all valid. I would never take that interpretation away. But I will say that personally, I don't see her story as a complete tragedy, but rather as a representation of the iceberg theory. All of the stuff at the bottom we barely get to see when it comes to the people we look up to. The struggles they face, the hard lessons they've had to learn, and the obstacles they needed to overcome to become the heroes we acknowledge today. It's David's slaying of the lion and the bear before defeating Goliath. Glinda's selfishness and vanity were her lion and her bear, and the system, her Goliath, which she is ready to conquer at the end when the Grimmery recognizes her goodness. This is why I and many love Glinda so much. It has nothing to do with being secretly bigoted, or her character being white or Ariana Grande. It's just about the way she is written, how relatable her life story is, how she is an imperfect person, chosen for greatness she does not deserve, but overcomes her many fears to try and be worthy of it. How I feel about her story can be summarized by a quote from my favorite animated teenager. Never forget that fear is but the precursor to valor, and that to strive and triumph in the face of that fear is what it means to be a true hero.